Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussions, news, and interviews, presenting The Film Scene with Illeana Douglas. Illeana is an actress, writer, author, and film historian with a need to discuss movies that borders on obsession. You'll learn the history of movies one great story at a time. The Film Scene is the deep cuts of movie podcasts, featuring movies we love by the people who made them. And now, Illeana Douglas.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here in the house of Illeana Douglas.
Hi there, good morning.
I was just saying, it's very podcasty of us to be sitting in your breakfast nook looking on the streets of Spalding Square.
That's right, our historic. Just think how many movie actresses came up and down. This house was built in 1919, so it's 100 years old.
Who are some of your favorite people that you've had in this house?
Oh my God. There's so many. I look around, well, I have an old-timey piano there, Jeff Goldblum has played the piano. Sharon Stone sang cowboy songs. We had a lot of people talk about the night. We had James Woods singing Rolling Stones songs.
So cool.
But all sorts of movie people, writers, fights, boyfriends, just clamoring to get in. Not really that.
Well, the reason we are not at our podcast studio today, guys, is because we did our first live show on Sunday. Today's Tuesday. This is airing Thursday if you're listening to this on the podcast. But it was really great. You're going to hear an interview with Illeana and Bela Lugosi Jr. That we streamed from the Alex Theater. Really cool experience.
Oh, my God. It was, first of all, the theater. We were driving to Glendale, which we never do. And when I got a glimpse of the theater, it was the Alex Theater. It was, I don't know what year it was built, but just an amazingly restored, beautiful theater. The downstairs, we got in the downstairs. Well, no, wait. First we knew that Bela Lugosi Jr. was there because we saw his vanity plate on his car. Bela Jr., which I thought was amazing. We took pictures of that. And then downstairs they had the horror music playing really loudly. That was really funny. And because we were selling books, it reminded me of my book tour. I said, remember carrying the easel and the gigantic poster? Oh, showbiz.
Showbiz. It was cool. The theater, it was interesting because it felt like sort of a classic Art Deco theater, but somehow it was also very well kept and clean.
Beautiful.
I feel like you can't always get both. Either it's an old theater, so it has sort of like the dusty old antique feel, or it's a new theater and doesn't have character, but this had both.
Yes, plus everybody welcomed us, and the idea to see these two great movies, The Raven and The Old Dark House, the one my grandfather is in on the big screen too, and both prints looked amazing. I thought.
Yeah, it was fun. It's, as you guys know, this is dropping on Halloween, so right now there's, as much as LA can ever do any kind of holiday, the Halloween buzz has kind of been around the city, and it did get me in the mood to watch these old films.
I thought so, yeah, the scary movies. Some of these old scary movies are really, they're so great, and seeing Bela Lugosi, one of my favorite things that his son said was when he went to the movies with his father and all the kids would get scared. I thought that was really funny. Like, why are all the kids looking at my dad and screaming and running away?
That's true. I'm sure as someone's child, it's impossible to view them as anything but your parents.
Yeah, especially somebody like Bela Lugosi.
We watched The Raven, though, and any of you guys have seen that film. There's some unsettling moments. It's interesting. I was reading about the film, and they kind of buried it after it ran in theaters because of all the torture themes.
Yeah, they based on a Edgar Allan Poe story, and so they weave some of that in. Mm-hmm. But you do get to see both Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi on screen.
Yeah,
at the same time, and poor Boris Karloff too under. Jesus, this hideous makeup. It was really scary. It was like plastic surgery gone wrong, right? He has the one, he decides to distort his face.
So was he more unsettling in that movie or The Real Housewives after too many surgeries, Illeana? That's the question.
Well, since I don't see that Real Housewives, I'm going to go with Bela Lugosi. I was thinking of a story from my grandfather's book that when he did The Old Dark House. And then subsequently, he did this movie called The Vampire Bat with Bela Lugosi, and he thought that when they did The Old Dark House, Bela Lugosi, again, in this very, very heavy makeup for that film. He said he used to have to get there at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
And he felt so bad for him. He said here he was, this civilized man drinking tea and very sophisticated and, locked under having to do this, get there at 4. And my grandfather thought that was a cautionary tale. So he never he didn't do any horror movies. After that, he hightailed it back to New York and did theater. And then when he came out, he was more of a leading man. But this was the early part of his career where they couldn't, they just threw him in a bunch of different things.
So The Old Dark House was really his only horror project that he did.
Well, he did 3.
Okay.
He did The Old Dark House, and they were all around the same time, The Vampire Bat, and then there was another one, and I'm going to say it wrong, but it's something like Naitsi, and it's about tsetse flies.
Interesting.
Nagazi, or something very strange like that. Now, I haven't seen that one.
Okay.
That one seems to be very rare.
Interesting.
But he did 3, and that was enough for him. Vampire Bat was the one that he said, all right, I'm done.
The straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
What's interesting, though, is even in The Old Dark House, I feel like your grandfather still is sort of playing a leading man type.
Yes.
What was interesting about that movie is I felt like sometimes in horror movies they put the characters through horrifying situations, but it almost felt like there was the horror element of the movie, then sort of the
right.
almost romantic...
Yeah, the romantic comedy element.
Yeah.
Where where Charles Lawton shows up. And Charles Lawton, very young, he was also great.
Yeah.
But he shows up with a chorus girl, who's sort of easy, I guess. And then she and my grandfather end up falling for each other, which happened very quickly in the movie.
Yeah, it's a quick... we won't give away what happens to the couple. I bet you can predict it, but it is it's a whirlwind romance.
I thought that one of the surprising things was the amount of stunts that they had.
I know.
That he had to do, which really made me nervous. Having chairs broke. I mean, even though they're, breakaway chairs, it looked very dangerous to me.
Yes, that is peek behind the curtain, guys. That's Illeana's Chauncey.
That's Chauncey Gardner agreeing.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Well, it was a really, really wonderful show, and we're, as always, thankful for listening, guys. This is our very first live show with Bela Lugosi Jr., hopefully not our last. I'd say for a first live show, it went pretty well.
I think so. I love the audience. I wish we could have done more Q&A questions, but I always try to ask things... to me, some of the revelations he made about his father and, meeting Martin Landau, you're never going to hear these stories again, and his father. So I thought that one of the most emotional things he said, which people hear in the interviews, when he said that a day doesn't go by where he's not asked about his father.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was... such an amazing legacy, and again, a reminder of how lucky we are to be in Los Angeles and just be near these people and do interviews, with them.
Absolutely. Well, as always, guys, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed to this podcast if you're not. We're live every Thursday at 2 p.m. on the Popcorn Talk channel on YouTube, and this podcast feed that you're listening to is updated weekly. Next week, we have Heather's writer Daniel Waters, which we're very excited about.
Yes, and a tribute to high school movies.
And high school movies, exactly. So, we're really excited for that, and we'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the interview.
Bye.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the historic Alex Theater. I'm Randy Carter, board member, and...
I'm Illeana Douglas, and I feel like we're in vaudeville here.
Darling, we are. So I'm going to hand this to Illeana, and we're going to bring our guests out and break a leg.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Unfortunately, Sarah Karloff could not be here, but we have Mr. Bela Lugosi Jr. Would you like to sit there? If you'll just get seated. I'll give you. And this is my podcaster, Jeff Graham. We're actually recording tonight because it's such a momentous occasion for us to have you here. And I told you backstage, your father and my grandfather did 2 films together. So that's a momentous occasion for me.
In Oscar, he had a very small part, but very memorable.
He was fantastic.
Bela Lugosi, the reclusive star, was in that movie.
Yes. So, and also just so everyone knows, if you have any questions, sort of think of some questions. We don't have time for too many, but if you have some questions, please think of them. So the first thing I wanted to ask you, which is very exciting, your father's cape, you just made a donation to the Academy. So I was wondering if you could talk to us about that.
Yes, this was actually a pretty momentous endeavor on the part of the Lugosi family. My mother preserved it, my dad preserved the cape that he wore in the film and passed it down to my mother, who passed it down to me. It's been like 80-some years we've had it in the family. And recently the family has donated that to the museum, the Motion Picture Museum.
Wonderful. Another question I wanted to ask you was about your dad's heritage. He was Hungarian.
Yes, my dad was born in the town of Lugos, from which he ultimately took his name, his stage name. And that's now in Romania, but at the time he was born, that was part of Hungary. And then he went from there at a fairly young age, started acting, and then went to Vienna and Germany and Berlin and pursued his career there. And in the early 1920s, he boarded a ship in Trieste from, I believe it was in Italy, came to New Orleans, made his way to New York, went through Ellis Island, and became a naturalized American citizen.
And when he was in Hollywood, was he around a kind of a Hungarian contingent in Hollywood?
Well, there was in New York, and then when he came to Los Angeles to do the Dracula motion picture, there was a Hungarian contingent there as well. And there was a meeting house that the people had, and I remember being taken to events there with all the Hungarian community. Also, you know, he kept the roots alive, but he helped the blood drive. He helped the Hungarian community.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I know you weren't on a lot of his films, but you were on one very particular film, which I think we all know. And what was that?
I was on 2. The first one, I don't remember because I was only like 1 or 2 years old. But the one I remember, I was 10 years old. It was in 1948. Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
And do you have, and what were Abbott and Costello like?
Well, you know, they didn't have much to do with me. 10-year-old kid. But I'll tell you, Glenn Strange and Lon Chaney Jr. were very nice to me. They took me to the commissary in full makeup. Yeah,
Wow.
That was the scene.
So when you were on these film sets, did you, and I've seen photographs, and you look so much like your dad, and obviously you have the same name, but did you became an attorney, you are...
Yeah, I took his good advice.
Now when somebody calls you up and they have, you know, you go into court and you say, well, my lawyer's Bela Lugosi Jr., who's your lawyer?
Well, you know, I never wanted and did trade on my name. But I can tell you that there's hardly a day goes by that somebody doesn't recognize the name, say such nice things, like you people.
That's true. Just a legacy. Another question I wanted to ask was that you were very involved in getting a law enacted called the Celebrity Rights Act, and I was wondering if you could talk about that.
Yeah, that's quite an odyssey. It's the law today protecting the rights of celebrities. But in 1963, while I was still in law school, Universal started licensing various companies to make items bearing my dad's name and likeness. And so I brought a lawsuit and won. But then it got reversed on appeal. And then the legislature took up the matter and passed the Celebrity Rights Act, which made into law my position that I had, namely that the rights to the name and likeness of a deceased celebrity survived the death of that celebrity.
That's amazing. Yeah, thank you. And I had a question too. Well, I guess this is not. Do you have a favorite film of your dad's?
Well, you know, I have to say Dracula because it's so classic.
It is.
But really, the Black Cat.
The Black Cat. And what was your dad? I mean, from what I've read, he was a very, soft-spoken man off camera. What was he like as a dad at home?
Well, he could be soft-spoken, but as you'll see in the movie Raven that you're going to see tonight, with all but calm. But your question was what?
Well, I was saying, at home, like what
Oh,
were his
yes.
hobbies? And
That's my most frequently asked question. What was it like? Well, for me, for one thing, Dad was 56 when I was born, so there's quite an age difference. And to me, he was just Dad. We would go to the movies with friends of mine, my parents would take me, and the other kids would hide behind the seats. But to me, it was just Dad. I didn't know what they were doing.
that's so funny.
Anyway, he was also a real gentleman. He didn't have a formal education, but he was very well read in all sorts of subjects. He had manners. He was polite. He liked the finer things in life that success brought him. He was well liked and respected by his peers, from the people, from the grips, all the way up to the other stars.
And do you remember some of the different places that you lived? Did you live in Beverly Hills or did you live outside Beverly Hills?
Well, mostly in Hollywood, although there was a period of time when I was 6 years old till 15. I lived in Lake Elsinore, California. Anybody hear of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that when you went to military school?
I went to military school from 1st through 6th grade. And then 7, 8, and 9, I went to the public school in Elsinore. And then the 9th grade, the second half of the 9th grade, we moved to Los Angeles, my dad, my mother, and me.
Did you have school friends, other friends whose parents were in show business?
Not that I know of.
Just, I think, we only have about 5 more minutes. I know there's some audience questions as well, but, if anyone is interested in asking Bela some questions while he's here, we'd love to. Or if you want to ask Illeana a question as well, we'd be happy to. Looking for anyone out there interested? I think right here we have a question. I believe we have a mic coming to you. Yeah, go ahead and yell.
Hello?
I'll repeat the question for the audience. So the question is, of course, we heard his favorite movies from Bela Jr., but did your dad have any movies in particular that he was fond of?
That's a good question. I think the answer is White Zombie. Yeah. That was a very low budget film as it turned out, and they had a vacancy in the director slot. So my dad actually was proud to say that he helped direct that movie.
Any other questions from the audience? I think we have time for two more. Right here, you can go ahead and yell and I'll repeat it. So the question is, did Bela Jr. ever consider acting himself, and why or why not? Did you consider acting?
Never did, and I'll tell you why. I took his good advice. He thought that talent was either too subject to agents and producers, and he thought that I should have a profession where I had more independence. Turned out to be good advice.
I have a quick question.
Mason Meaning, because I didn't have the talent.
You had the looks, though. I had a quick question. People talk about the rivalry between Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi, but that was really more of a publicity stuff, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. I've appeared with Sarah Karloff in a lot of different venues, and we all always kid each other about that. But it was a rumor. Karloff and Lugosi had such different backgrounds and upbringings, and different lifestyles. Boris would like a cup of tea, but the other would like a fine cigar. Boris would like working in the garden, and Dad would like skiing. So they're two completely different people. And they had certainly competition, but no animosity like we see here in Washington.
I also read that your dad was a fan of Marlon Brando.
Funny you should say that. He was. I went to a movie in Hollywood, and I can't remember which title it was. With Marlon Brando, and he thought he was the finest then performing actor. Yeah.
We have an audience question right here. So the question is, Martin Landau portraying Bela Lugosi.
Well, yes, I met with Martin Landau afterwards, and we had a very good relationship. We went to lunch together, and I talked to him about that. He didn't write the script, but he faithfully performed my dad on the screen. The objection I had with the script, of course, it had portrayed him as doing things he never did, saying things he never said.
That must always be tough, perceptions. What do you think is the biggest sort of misrepresentation of your father?
And he only played one part.
I think we have time for one more question before. Back here, if you don't mind shouting.
No problem. Did your father have a favorite director that he liked to work with?
So the question is, did Bela Lugosi have any directors that he particularly liked working with?
I don't know, but I can tell you that because of our huge age difference, that's not the kind of thing that he and I would talk about.
What was the best advice he ever gave you?
Well, probably in the form of his work ethic. He was so committed to perfection in his characterization, and he could do one take.
Well, I think that's all the time we have for today, but let's give it up for both Illeana and Bela Lugosi Jr. guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Quickly, we also want to say a very, very generous thank you to the Alex Film Society for bringing our podcast on today. Of course, thank you. This is The Film Scene with Illeana Douglas. If any of you guys are podcasters, I co-produce this show and I co-host it, and I have to say, I am just as much a producer of the show as a fan. I sit in studio with Illeana. I'm constantly floored by the amount of knowledge that she has about the industry. She's just as passionate and just as much a cinephile as everyone in this room. It's a wonderful show. We featured everyone from Alfred Molina to Rose McGowan to Ruta Lee to Moby. We had Moby on a couple days ago, too. So if you love a deep dive, sort of nerdy, obsessive look at the history of cinema, you have to check out Illeana's show. Enjoy the film. Yes, and thank you to the Alex Film Society. Thanks for tuning into the Film Scene with Illeana Douglas, airing exclusively on the Popcorn Talk Network. We bring you this show for free because we're just as passionate and borderline obsessed with film as you are, and it would mean a lot if you would please subscribe to our podcast and give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. It takes 5 minutes to review the show, but it helps other film junkies find the show and continue to spread a love of classic and contemporary film. For guest inquiries or live bookings, you can email me, Jeff Graham, at guests@AfterBuzzTV.com. That's GUESTS@AFTERBUZZ.com. For more incredible film content, check us out online at The Popcorn Talk, and we'll see you after the credits.